Hi guys, so today I will bring you a video about the Glaminatrix U Beauty palette. So this palette came out earlier this year and I got mine during the second pre-orders, which is around early April. So this palette is Australian themed and all the shade names are named after after a slang in the Australian accent. So I find it very interesting because they came with this card that explains all the slangs in this palette, and well, it's quite interesting to look at these terms. I've got no idea of what these shade names mean before I read this card. Well, now that I know budgie smugglers is a type of men's swimwear, so that's quite interesting. And about the palette, I will insert a video clip here. That's me swatching this palette, and the shade names are Australia, Bloody Oath, Chokers, Stitch Up, Fair Dinkum, Old Maid, She'll Be Right, Budgie Smugglers, Whoop Whoop, Struth, Flaming Gala, Good Day. I have to insert another video here, that is me swatching Old Maid, Flaming Gala and Good Day. These three are the shiftiest shade in this palette, and I feel like I have to give them some more attention in this swatching section. So as you can see that on my hand, they look very shifty, especially the shade Good Day and Flaming Gala. Good Day looks like a shade that has a silver base but shipped orange and yellow, and Flaming Gala looks just like an pink iridescent, but when you put it on your hands it has a yellow and green flip to it. And I find these shades to be absolutely amazing. Swatched out, they are very pretty. So if you're interested to see how this shade performs on my eyes and how I achieve these two looks, keep on watching.
Same as always, I mix the P2E base in the shade 01 and 03 and apply to the entire eyelid. Let's look at the first look. I take the shade Budgie Smugglers, which is the matte red, and apply to the entire crease and connected it to the outer crease and to the lower lash line, creating a graphic wing, and blending it out with the shade Struth, which is the matte yellow shade. However, it is possible that I applied too much eyeshadow base, making it a bit difficult to blend. Fortunately, I mixed the yellow shade and the red shade to blend, and it makes it blend beautifully. I take the yellow shade Struth to make the outer parts of the crease a little bit warmer. Then I take the shade down to the lower lash line to blend out the red shade. Then I take the P2E blank canvas eye paint to cut the crease to create a little wing to the outer parts of the eyelid, making it very opaque. Then I apply the blue shade Fair Dinkum to the outer parts of the lid but leaving a little gap between the blue shade and the red shade. Then I take the shade Budgie Smugglers, which is the matte red shade, and apply to the inner part of the lid. Then I mix the red shade and the blue shade and let it meet in the middle of the lid, creating a deep purple shade. Then I take the shade Chokers, which is a shimmery light purple shade, and apply it to the middle of the eyelid, covering the previous deep purple shade, and blending it with the blue and the matte red shade. I take the blank canvas eye paint again and redefine the middle gap between the lid and the crease. Then I'm taking the multichrome shade Good Day and apply it to the brow bone. And I'm taking the shade Flaming Gala, which is also a multichrome, and apply it to the inner corners, and extending it to the inner corners of the lid. And then I'm taking Whoop Whoop, which is a shimmery yellow, and redefining the brow bone. Now let's look at the other eye look. First, take the shade Stitch Up, which is a deep brown shade, and apply it to the inner part of the crease. Then take the shade She'll Be Right, which is a light brown mauve kind of shade, and apply it to blend out the previous brown shade. And take the blank canvas shade again to cut the crease. And take the shade Fair Dinkum, which is a deep blue shade, and map out the crease. And blend it out with the shade Bloody Oath. It may look like a mint, but on the eyes it looks more blue. It blended out beautifully. And then I'm redefining the crease with Fair Dinkum again to make it more dimensional. And blending it out with a clean brush. And then I'm using P. Louise blank canvas to cut the crease. This is what it looks like after cutting the crease. Then I'm using Fair Dinkum to deepen out the outer corners of my eye. Then I'm using Bloody Oath to blend out the inner parts and the outer parts of that deep blue shade, creating a very nice gradient. I'm using Fair Dinkum again to create more dimension, and now I'm blending it out again with the Bloody Oath shade again. Now I'm taking Truth, which is a matte yellow shade, and apply it to the inner part of the lid. And using P. Louise blank canvas to map out the blank part of the crease. Then I'm taking Old Maid, which is a multichrome, and apply it to the inner part of the lid. And using Bloody Oath to merge between the deep blue and the Old Maid shade. And taking Straya to lighten the brow bone. And using Fair Dinkum again to deepen the lower lash line. And then I'm taking Bloody Oath to blend out the lower lash line. And Good Day, apply to the lower lash line and the inner corners. And now the two eye looks are complete. I'm gonna put on the rest of my makeup. And now the look is complete. Here are some close-up of my eye look. And now is the look of my entire full face.
Tutorial for these two looks. I hope you all enjoy it. So now let's talk about my thoughts on the palette. So I've tried Glaminatrix formula before, and I absolutely love the mattes because I find the mattes to be very pigmented and very blendable. They're the same in this palette. It might be my fault when I'm applying the red shade over here. I apply too much eyeshadow base. Like I applied too many layers of eyeshadow base before, and then I just packed on the red shade, and it turns out to be a little bit difficult to blend. I mixed the yellow and the red to get an orange shade, and then to blend it out, and then it blends out beautifully again. So I don't think it is that big of an issue. And another thing is that because these shades blend so beautifully, they can mix easily. So you might look at this palette and feel like, oh wow, that's not that many colors. But like on this, I tried mixing the red and the blue to achieve a kind of purple kind of color, and then I applied the purple shimmer, which is chocolate, on top, and I find that works beautifully. And on this side, because the shade Bloody Oath, it might look a little bit greenish in the pan. Yeah, it looks green in the pan. It looks like a mint in the pan, but on the eyes, it's actually more of a turquoise. And but I do want to use the shade Old Mate, which is more of a green. So I mixed the yellow and the turquoise to get a sort of kind of a green base down, and then I applied the Old Mate, which is a multi-chrome, on top. So that also works beautifully. I think apart from that Bloody Oath shade, the other shades are pretty much what you see is what you get on the eyes. They reach full opacity like in a heartbeat, and especially the browns Stitch Up and She'll Be Right. These two shades blend out like in a second. Yeah, it's just the same Glaminatrix formula that I've always loved. And as for the shimmer shades, their shimmer shades are very buttery. In this palette, there are different kinds of shimmer shades, like Straya here. Straya has a chunkier kind of particle, and if you like, when I was swatching this shade, I swirled my finger in there, and then I definitely picked up too much. And as for these two multichromes here, their particles are definitely smaller, so they are a lot smoother to the touch. So there's the difference in the different shimmers. I have to point out another thing is that Straya has a green flip, and Whoop Whoop has a sort of a light pink flip, and they're all very pretty. But unfortunately, because my look, I want to use every single shade in this palette, so a lot of the shimmer shades I can only use them in a very small area, but because they are mostly shifty shades, for shifty shades you have to apply to the majority of your eyelid. That way it can cover the entire curve of your eyelid, then they can show the reflection better, if that makes sense. But I can only apply to a small section of my eyes to show off some more shades on my eyelids. That's why it's not showing up the flip that well, but you can still see that Flaming Gala and G'day are still very, very obvious. The shifts are still very, very obvious. So these two are definitely my favorite shades in this palette. So back to the palette itself. The palette is 95 Australian dollars. You have to pay shipping. So I think that's not a bad price considering there are a couple multichromes in this palette, and it is handmade, and I think it is definitely a palette made with love, and it's so unique. So another thing I want to add to this palette is that Glaminatrix has one of the best customer service that I've experienced. So because I ordered with my friends to get this palette, and we ordered 3 palettes together, and all three of them came broken. And I'm not saying it's their fault, but because of their formula is quite fragile, that happens a lot and it's understandable. So I posted a story on my Instagram and I kind of showed how some of the matte shades are broken and it kind of got everywhere and everything is kind of mixed together. And they reached out to me and offered that they can send some replacements for the matte shades in my next order. I immediately said yes, and I thank them so much for being so nice to their customer. And even though it's not necessarily their responsibility, because I'm sure they have tried their best to protect the palette, but sometimes accidents happen and they try their best to salvage everything. And I think that attitude is something that is worth mentioning. Kudos to them for doing that. That is very nice. So this palette, it will restock on this Saturday. If you're interested in this palette, please don't hesitate to pick it up, because the owner of the brand mentioned on their Instagram that after this round of restock, they won't be doing this palette for a while because they have to focus on another palette that they had. So if you want to have this palette in a foreseeable future, maybe you have to grab this opportunity and purchase this palette. But I'm not pushing you or anything. I'm just reminding you that there is a restock and it could be the last restock in a very foreseeable future. Yeah, that's all I had to say about this palette. I absolutely love this palette, even though it's quite expensive and it took a while to get to me. And even though I have to repress like 3 of the shimmers to get this looking like this, but I still find it totally worth it because it is a beautiful palette and it is so unique. So I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. I will see you all in the next one. Bye!